Blog Talk Radio.
Mark? No Mark? Well, shit. Welcome to the Metal Hammer of Doom podcast. I am your co-host that is temporarily sitting in the captain's chair while Captain Kirk, Mr. Mark Radulich himself, is going to go fix the generator and hopefully not get killed by Khan. So, yes, this is pretty much our last podcast for the year. Surprise, surprise. I'm sure we've announced it a gajillion times on every single Radulich Broadcasting Network program. This is our year end. So for this year end, we have brought the best and worst, the best and worst for the year, which is pretty solid, I must say. I guess it's my best. I think Mark has like some stuff. I don't know. He posted Limp Bizkit on Facebook. It's kind of scary. But yes, I'm, as I said, Robert Cooper. I podcast on here. I kind of sort of have like 14 podcasts running around the internet. So Mark is going to be here in a second. Skype apparently booted him off. So yeah, that's why you got that really awkward intro and me kind of sort of like being like, oh shit, what's up? So I guess you're wondering how I'm doing since Mark can't ask you guys or get that guys out of me free out. I'm doing pretty good. In case anybody was wondering. This is like, in college, at least in the university, I've come to find out that exams week is a bitch, but if you don't have exams, like 2 weeks before exam week are a bigger bitch. Because that's what I'm dealing with right now. I got like 14,000 papers, 2 turtle doves, and a partridge in a pear tree due this week. So yeah, I'm just one of those guys. I'm overworked. Not even my column is lasting this week. No, the column is on a week hiatus. Because my ass needs to write papers on the Japanese language in Japan. And
hey there.
Hi there, Mark.
How are you?
Sakes. As I was telling the audience, I'm overworked, but I'm okay. Yeah, I didn't see your Facebook message until I went 15 seconds of Mark.
It's always a good way to start the show, isn't it?
Oh, yeah. I'm pretty sure we're going to get comments like, Jesus Christ, this guy sounds like an idiot, because I pretty much just botched everything because I was like, what's going on? Have I been abandoned?
Always have Facebook open so that I can talk to you in case we have production problems.
Yeah. Hey, on the Radulich Broadcasting Network, you get quality, damn it.
Okay, hang on just 1 second here.
Yes.
Can you hear me?
You are good.
All right. I got my spare set of cans on. It's radio talk.
Uh-huh.
I'm dialed in from my cell phone because Skype is being a son of a bitch tonight.
No, don't worry.
So,
now, at least now we're on an even playing field of sound quality.
Why, do I sound really bad?
No, you're not that bad. I mean, I hope I don't usually sound that bad. I just usually call from the phone. I didn't even know I could call in from Skype until I did hosting.
Yeah. Welcome to the Metal Hammer of Doom. I am your host, the mandated reporter, and frankly, I'm mortified, I'm mortified at this whole show at this point, Mr. Mark Radulich. Joining me, as always, is my co-host who doesn't turn on Facebook until it's too late, Mr. Robert Cooper. How do you do?
My Facebook was actually on, but I didn't notice until I walked over there. I'm like, oh, maybe Mark mentioned it. He's like, oh, he did mention it. Because he just went silent. I was like, damn, was my outro that bad?
Oh, God. You know, it took several, I got dumped twice by Skype. And then I was trying to dial back in, and then Skype just would not cooperate at all, so I finally just said, to hell with this. Thankfully, I had the foresight to charge my phone earlier. My landlines are not, really working anymore. I eventually have to get rid of the service entirely. So I'm pretty much down to cell phones, Google, and Skype. and unfortunately, I can't call in because I like using the Google call-in feature. I've been making phone calls with that, from my Google account, and that works pretty well. Except for whatever reason, I can't call Blog Talk Radio using Google. I've tried. I don't know why it won't let me. Maybe one day I'll try calling the host queue from my Google account, see if that works, because I can't call in as a guest. That never works. So this is all very interesting for people calling in, listening about wanting to listen to music. So tonight is our last show of 2013 because the next three Radulich and Broadcasting shows next week is a break because it's Thanksgiving and I will be on a cruise. And then the following 3 weeks is all Long Road to Ruin with myself and Sean Comer doing Die Hard for 2 weeks, and then we're ending with the Santa Claus. And then the next time we'll be doing any show of any kind will be January 7th. And then Robert and I will be back on January 14th. So that's how the schedule breaks down. So we're going to do sort of our best and worst, things that we missed, things that we skipped, things that we just wanted to play for this final show for the next hour or so. Just kind of hitting some things we wanted to talk about before we closed out for the year. So Robert picked 6 tracks. I picked 6 tracks, mostly to annoy Robert. Just kidding. Not really. And
well, you're a third of the way there.
And we're just going to have some fun here. Before we get to the music, I wanted to real quickly, I actually knew about this already, but a friend of mine just posted it on Facebook, and since, even though this is actually old news by now, I wanted to share it and talk about it. As been documented on this show, I have been going to concerts since I'm in high school. My very first concert was at the Roseland Ballroom in Midtown Manhattan. Now, the Roseland Ballroom historically, was a place was exactly as its namesake. It was a place where, men and women went to go ballroom dancing, but they used to have concerts there as well. So it's like, there are days where there's really fancy ballroom dancing, an upscale crowd, and if you've ever been to Midtown Manhattan, that's where the money is, where Broadway is. That's one of the better parts of Manhattan. And then when there wasn't ballroom dancing, they would book shows, and they would book anything from Nirvana to Anthrax to Cannibal Corpse to that's where the first time I saw Clutch was, as documented. I saw them on a tour with Biohazard and Morgana. I spent an enormous amount of time going to that concert hall, and unfortunately, it has fallen victim to what's happened in a lot of places around New York City. It's fallen victim to the economy. It's just, I don't know what happened here, but it's closing its doors in 2014. So this story comes to us from hornsuprocks.com. Odd name of a website, but New York City's Roseland Ballroom to close its doors in 2014. Another New York City venue will be closed soon. Roseland Ballroom is shutting their doors April of 2014. Just like CBGB's, Moore, The Wetlands, Coney Island High, Don Hills, Ace of Clubs, Crash Mansion, Sullivan Hall, and legions of clubs around the nation. So there was one that I swear to God was closed every week because of drugs. The lack of support for live music due to the poor economy has forced the property owners of this New York City mecca to close the venue so they can demolish it and build an apartment building. Are you fucking me? I didn't know that part of it. To make matters even worse, Lady Gaga will be the last performer to ever set foot on the Roseland Ballroom's legendary stage via a string of special shows on March 28th, 30th, 31st, and April 2nd. Reports about the Roseland shutting its doors circulated about a month ago, but the Gaga announcement is the first official announcement of the venue's untimely shutdown. I'm really sad about this. Like I said, I've seen tons of shows there. I remember, it's kind of hard to kind of talk about on the radio, but it was one of the easiest places to get to. Especially if you were just a kid from Long Island and you weren't tremendously familiar with the New York City subway system. You could you take the Long Island Railroad into Manhattan, into Penn Station, and then it was that's 34th Street, and then you'd walk about 20 blocks to West 52nd. There was the diner deli that was right across the street from there where we get cold beverages, because that's been documented on this show. I like cold beverages. I like cold beverages. Come on, Robert, sing with me. I like cold beverages. Where you at? Cold beverages. Yeah. So you get in, you'd stop in there, get yourself a frosty beverage, maybe a sandwich, and you go inside and watch the music, and you come out, you're all sweaty, you need another drink, you go into the deli again. Well, that place closed down a few months ago, unfortunately. And
maybe that's why. That's why the club's closing down, because the deli couldn't support the cold beverages.
Yeah, probably. I'm sure. There was definitely a symbiotic relationship going on between the diner deli, and the Roseland Ballroom. But it was one of the safest venues to go to and get to. It was, like I said, it was right in the middle of Midtown, and it wasn't that long of a walk from Penn Station. It was always well lit. I never really had any trouble. I remember there was one show where we went to go see Slayer, I think Biohazard, and Machine Head. So we were walking back from Roseland, and we were all, decked out in black and beat up and angry looking and angsty. And we're watching people walk in the opposite direction, and they've all got on like flowered sort of Hawaiian shirts and grass skirts and stuff. And I'm like, and I say to my friend, because I'm an idiot, like, what, the convention in town? What's going on here? And somebody stops up. They're like, where are you going? To Jimmy Buffett? No, Slayer. They're like, oh, screw that. Come to Jimmy Buffett. Apparently Jimmy Buffett was in town that night, along with Slayer, Machine Head, and Biohazard.
Well, yeah, nothing says Margaritaville like a little rating blood.
You'd walk in the place, and first thing you'd see is all the merch that greeted you when you walked in. It was just a huge place. There was like a VIP section that was elevated off to the right of the stage. I remember there were definitely times where, because you could smoke indoors once upon a time in New York City, where I'd be like moshing around and have to like dodge cigarettes. Got burned once or twice. You go down, people would hang out downstairs, and it was like a bazaar, like a little busy bee or Tri-County if you're from Long Island, you know what I'm talking about. People would would be selling like odd merchandise and stuff, not just T-shirts and things like buttons. People, like, not necessarily related to the bands, just anything that they could sell would be downstairs. It was just a fun place to be, and it was a big part of my a big part of the happiest memories I have of high school, and high school was not the most pleasant of times. Not going to tell any more stories about that, but needless to say, Yeah, it's hard to talk about these kinds of things for me because it's like saying goodbye to an old friend. So, to Rose and Ballroom, we shall miss you. All right, Robert Cooper. I don't know if you have anything to add to that, but we should probably get into your best of here. I've been talking for a little while now, so I'm going to hand it over to you. Our first track tonight comes from the band Carcass, and why don't you tell us a little bit about the album and the track and why you picked it as your number one for tonight?
Oh, we're going in reverse order. Oh, I should have specified. Okay. I was actually going 6-1.
No, God damn it.
I thought we were doing countdown style.
You want me to go backwards? We can go backwards. I put it in the order I was going to play this stuff in.
No, I put it in like, okay, because actually the number 6 was originally honorable mention, but it didn't line up with the rest, so I'm like, oh, that might be a problem.
Sorry, well, hang on a second. Let me fix this. So we're going to start with your honorable mention, God damn it. The band is Mechana, and the song is Anathema from the album Empyrean. Go while I fix this mess that you created.
Actually, for the other 5 albums, it's pretty much my top 5 of the year so far. Like, so if you're really looking forward to my top 50 of the year column at the end of the year, spoilers. This is actually the one album that isn't in like my top 10. This is the album, literally the first album I listened to in 2013, and it blew me away. I actually tried to get Mark to do it, and I think we did Hatebreed or something like that. Yeah. Yeah, I was like, let's do this. You know, how about we do this? And I'm like, okay, that's cool. Yeah, this was an album that really blew me away because it was something I didn't really expect to like. Because the other album that I looked at the review for, it was had this Fear Factory in space. No, Fear Factory, okay. Let me listen to this. And I listened to the whole album, and by the last track, which was I was going to upload, but they didn't have it on YouTube, I was just blown away. It does a really good job. There's a great, really kind of distant ambient atmosphere that you get from a in space album. It had a really just kind of almost an otherworldly feel to a lot of the symphonic parts of it. And I love the kind of more industrial, or I wouldn't say they're industrial, kind of like Fear Factory. Like a lot of the instrumentation sounds a lot like Fear Factory. As well as the singing's not quite like Fear Factory. It's got kind of a little, almost like the metalcore vibe of like singing and then screaming, except it doesn't have that whiny tone that nobody likes. Yeah. But yeah, I straight up enjoy the album. It's really good. It will definitely be in the top 50, so it's on Spotify, and I think Mark should go listen to it too. So I guess without further ado, here is, was it Aventarium? Something like that?
What now?
No, I was just going to be like, yeah, okay, blah, 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 blah. Now you can play the song.
That's great. All right. Hopefully we'll get these cues right tonight at some point. Oh, God. Our last show, and it's going to be this much of a train wreck. Good stuff. Here it is, folks. Robert's honorable mention here from the band Mechana. The song is Anathema. barely intelligible.
Really?
Yeah. At least from my vantage point.
Oh, was it the audio quality?
Yeah, it was hard for me to make not only because I'm doing the whole show from my cell phone, but it's
a cell phone.
Okay, so it was very hard for me to make out.
Welcome to my world.
Okay.
Yeah, there's a lot of times when we do the podcast, I'm like, I didn't hear all that. Yeah, usually when the vocals kick in, you can usually hear it. But yeah.
Okay. All right, so let's move on to an album that I wanted to do earlier this year. Now, we covered the new Ministry album, and that was a lot of fun. And by a lot of fun, I mean torture. But
not for our listeners.
Yeah. So, a little something about Ministry and I'm very distracted right now. A little something about Ministry and oh God, I've done it again. This is now the second year in a row I've picked something from a year that didn't actually come out. Well, I'm curious. Did I screw this up? How badly did I mess this up? Hang on. I want to see something for a second. Yep. Fucked up. Once again, messed up. So last year when we did this, I picked a song. I picked a song that was from 2011, and keeping with that, I have now picked an album that was released in 2012. As near as I can tell, January of 2012.
Oh man.
I did not pay attention when I uploaded this. Well, it was still something, goddammit, that I wanted to do anyway. And it's getting to the point of all of this without all my hemming and hawing. Alex Robinson from Ministry has about 6,000 side projects, and one that has been beaten around for a long time was his country industrial, alternative country industrial project called Buck Satan and the 666 Shooters. And us Ministry fans from back in the day had been waiting forever and ever and ever for there to be an actual full-length release of anything Buck Satan, because we'd heard about like demo tapes being tossed around and this and that, but nothing had ever come of it. So we were very excited that this year, that in 2012 apparently, January of 2012, though I didn't realize it was out until December of that year, hence my screwing up of adding it to this best of. They actually released a full album of Buck Satan and the 666 Shooters. So I wasn't particularly thrilled, obviously, with the latest Ministry, but this was worth the wait. And I decided that I'm going to go off the beaten path a little bit. All of the songs I picked tonight are covers, because that's what I do. I likes me some covers.
Because that is Mark Radulich. He likes him some musical covers, and even when it's like 100 degrees in the Florida heat, he has lots of covers.
That's right. That's not true at all. So here we go. This is a cover of The Birds by Buck Satan and the 666 Shooters called Drugstore Truck Driving Man.
That reminds me of today. I was doing a project that I've had for 4 months in a day, and I was listening to the new Melvins album, and they had I think it's Time I Peck Her to a Tree. They covered that, and it was the most fucking hilarious thing because it sounded almost like that. It was just kind of nice and happy. Yeah, it was just nice and kind of cheery and happy. I'm like, oh, okay. Awesome.
Yeah, I definitely have an affinity for alt country. I really do. I know, like you and a lot of the other guys, it's just like, oh, country, that's terrible, and, you know. I'm guessing it's like I think about it, just growing up in the South, and country gets associated with like rednecks, and rednecks get associated with terrible. But I don't have that I don't have that racist predisposition, and I can just enjoy the music for what it is. So. Someone who is very sympathetic to your thoughts on country music is my wife. I can't, you know, like I'll be driving in the car. Huh?
Did she grow up around here?
Well, she was born in North Carolina, and she spent the majority of her life, you know, between North Carolina, Cleveland, and Tampa. So she's certainly been around her Southerners.
Yeah, it's okay. So she will. Yeah, I can see why.
Yeah, she's not a huge fan of the country music, and she can tolerate some of the more pop country stuff because she can tolerate pop music better than I can. But when I play country, I want to play like Waylon Jennings, Merle Haggard. Oh, I love me some Merle Haggard. I could listen to Merle Haggard all day long. Johnny Cash, obviously.
I don't mind older country. Actually, like pop country pisses me off more than anything. Because it's taking two genres of music. One I don't like at all. The other one I just kind of annoyed by because it's pandering. God, pop country. You poor thing. Oh.
So the alt country, like, you know, a more serious alt country band like Cracker, which one day I want to do a retrospective of, I absolutely love Cracker to death. And if you yeah, I'm going to make you do a Cracker retrospective, and you're going to love Cracker as much as I do because I said so.
So is it going to be a Cracker, Metal Hammer Doom presents a Cracker retrospective done by two Crackers?
Yes, as a matter of fact. But seriously, if all you know by Cracker is either like Eurotrash Girl or Low, which was their big buzz clip back in the day. I'm really dating myself with the term buzz clip, by the way. You've missed
I've never heard
some
that
of their
term.
stuff.
Never heard the term buzz clip.
You children with your long hair and your rock and roll. Back in my day, MTV used to play music when they had. So there was a period where they had something called a buzz clip, and that was like, you know, like Danzig Mother, the live version from Thrall Demon Sweat Live was a buzz clip. Rage Against the Machine had a buzz clip. These were like videos that they were pushing really, really heavy in rotation. They were supposed to be like alternative videos. All right, so let's talk about your top five now, starting with the band Argus. Tell me about Argus and why you wanted to review, and we never got a chance to, Beyond the Martyrs.
Trying to think, that was actually one of the only ones we didn't get a chance, or I didn't even get a chance to mention it because it came out, I think, around October. And this is actually a relatively small band. They came on my radar because on my column each week I look at the new releases by you know, all the bands, all the releases that are coming out in North America. And that week I was just like, you know, nothing here is really catching my eye. So I went looking through, you know, just the list of small-time bands. I'm like, Argus. Doom, call it traditional metal mixed with doom metal. I'm like, okay, I'll bite. And then when I listened to this, I was just totally blown away. Like they've got some of the doom in them, you know, kind of the more morose and slow and sluggish stuff. But then they've got kind of like that, you know, that kind of just the spirit of a really traditional sound, which is, you know, still kind of, I guess, kind of groovy, kind of fun to listen to. It's a really interesting album, and actually, I went as soon as I finished listening to the album, I went to their Facebook page, like, oh my God, dude, it's like, I'm so in love with this album, and it's so good. And I've turned on a few people to the band. Like, I was really impressed by them. I feel like they're pretty accessible considering a lot of the other stuff I listen to, you know, because as you have said many times, we really just are acclimated to very loud noises. That's why we like it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's I really enjoyed this album. It's kind of an odd pick in my pretty much like the grand scheme of my I guess top albums of the year, because there haven't really been many great like stoner metal or doom metal albums this year. Like it's a lot of death metal, like a lot of death metal. But this is it's insane with death metal. But this is definitely one of those albums I feel like it's going to stick out to me throughout the years, and I hope they get like a bigger following because they're a pretty cool band. I can dig them.
I want to say they've been on like Prog. I want to say Argus has been on Prog Power before, so I think I've actually heard of them. All right, let's go ahead and give this a little bit of a listen. This is Four Candles Burning from the band Argus on the album Beyond the Martyrs. It's definitely my phone, and that was a great track. That was good stuff there.
Yeah, you should go totally check that album out, man. I think you'll like that in the album before the Mechana album. The sound quality, I guess, got butchered in the audio of cell phone.
Yeah. No, I'm actually checking it out now. I've got Argus up on Spotify, so I will definitely give them an opportunity to be listened to on my crazy car ride to work. All right. So here's a band that Robert and I both enjoy. The album came out in September, I swear to God, of 2013. So I think that for as long as we do this show, I'm always going to pick one from the wrong year. Like one year, I'm going to be like, here's a guy that I think will go far. Elvis Presley, folks.
Well, I see those Back to the Future references from the Ground and Pound really caught up.
I am a man out of time. In any case, the band is Tyr, Tyr. They released their new album, Valkyria, back in September 16th of 2013, I swear. And I think if we had an opportunity to, we probably would have. I really like this band. I've gone to see them live. Love their music. My wife has even come with me, and though she's not a huge fan of like epic battle metal, Viking metal, folk metal, whatever you want to label this, she actually enjoyed them when she saw them too. They didn't scare her as much. But granted, she also saw them at the same time that we saw Hailstorm, and she thought they were fabulous. In any case,
oh God. You should play their cover and Get Lucky.
Oh, I should have played it in the Navy. Oh, if I can get it uploaded before the end of this podcast, I will. Hailstorm covered in the Navy on their DVD.
Huh. Well, hey, everybody else is covering in the Army, so there we go. Maybe we could throw all the... Yeah, Sabaton covered it last year. Meldon's covered it this year. Everybody. Maybe if we can get the other two members of the armed forces together, and we could just have a whole album of covers based off of their show tunes.
Anyway, so the whole album is great, and they probably owed a bit more respect than playing the two covers. They had two covers on the album. One was an Iron Maiden one, Where Eagles Dare. I'm going to play the second one, the last track on here. This is a cover of Pantera's Cemetery Gates.
Conspiracy, crucified for no sin, an image beneath me, lost within my plans for life. It all seems so unreal. I'm a man who couldn't have feel this world, left in my misery.
I did like it. So I will say one thing that I found odd. His voice is almost a little too bright for that cover.
Yeah, he's a little happy. He's like, well, I guess you took my youth and gave it all
away.
Yeah, and gave it all away. Like, what are you so fucking happy about?
Well, I think that's just his vocal range. Like, I was like, yeah, like I still liked it. I was just like, he's just a little bright to be covering Anselmo. So I really do wish we would have. I do wish we would have gotten to the.
I was going to say, don't get me wrong, it's awesome.
Yeah.
But I didn't notice that. Like, okay, so Phil's vocals are very, very gravelly and dirty and 5 minutes alone, I'll put you in the face, you know, that kind of thing. So I totally get what you're saying by, you know, like his vocals are almost a little too clean, a little too pretty. But by the same token, I think he does an awesome job with the song.
Yeah. I'm not sure if that's just his vocal range or if the production's a little too clean, because sometimes the production's too clean, you just can't get any grit out of anything. But yeah, it was a good cover, and like I was about to say, I really do wish we would have stayed in long enough to hear that air raid siren of a scream, which I actually, there was once I was arguing with a friend of mine, because he's like, no, that's a guitar. I'm like, no, dude. The first scream is Phil. The second one is Dime. He's like, no, I got to go listen to it. I'm like, go ahead. I'll wait.
Yeah, that's definitely good stuff there. I wish we had been able to do the whole album. I mean, I listened to it over the last day or so in preparation for this podcast, and it really is good. I really don't have anything bad to say about it. I think my one complaint about it only would have been that we may have run into the same problem I had with Children of Bodom, which was I don't have anything bad to say about it, but it doesn't necessarily stand out as something where, like, you know, we had a lot more to say about the bad albums this year than the good ones. So
yeah,
that's the one trap that we get into, is that if it's too good, you know, but it doesn't necessarily stand out, it ends up not having a lot to say about it.
Yeah, that is sometimes, like, that's the pitfall of covering good things. Like, you know, a good UFC show, sure, you can talk about stuff, but a bad UFC, you know, like this GSP Hendrix decision, you dudes talked about that for over an hour, and it featured the greatest speech I had ever heard in my life.
He did do a good job with that, didn't he?
Pat Mullen is a scholar and a saint.
For those that, just as an aside, for those that don't listen to the MMA podcast, or this may not make any sense at all, but you know, GSP had what appeared to be a mild to average anxiety attack going on in the cage. And he's like, I have to go away for a while. And Pat Mullen took the opportunity to do an imitation of GSP, giving that speech as Shawn Michaels when he did the I've lost my smile bit. And it was, and hilarity ensued.
I was literally laughing out loud. I was clapping. I actually started clapping. It was so good. I almost called in, too, because I'm like, oh, shit, Sean's there. Why not just add everybody? But then I'm like, I'm going to wait for them to, get to, you know, stuff like Roy McDonald. And then the feed went off, and I'm like, oh, well.
Yeah, I did not plan for the show to go that long. All right. So I was
actually surprised. I was surprised you put it as an hour, to be honest. I was like, oh, man, GSP. I'm surprised you didn't at least give it an hour and a half.
Yeah, I truly did not want to say that. I did not expect us to talk for that long, and I didn't really want to. But kind of like tonight's show, I'm like, we're only going to do an hour. And we spend the first 10 minutes of me trying to call into the show, and the next 10 minutes talking about the road tent. And it's like 30 minutes left, and I'm like, well, we should probably start playing music.
Yeah, don't worry. You missed the greatest botch ever where I meant to be talking about my project where I have to talk about the English language use in Japan. I said the Japanese language use in Japan. I'm like, that sounds stupid.
All right. Here's something that's not so stupid. Let's talk about your next album, Witherscape, the band Witherscape. Song is Dead for a Day from the album The Inheritance. What's going on there?
This is actually an album that I was going to review at the beginning of Mark's Old Man Battery Recharge delay. That was like a month. But as you heard on that the Death podcast, I was like, either I could do this album that I really do like, or I could talk about my favorite band of all time with no restrictions and as much time as I want. I'm like, yeah, I'm going to go with Death. This album is just really good, especially if you like Dan Swanio's work in Edge of Sanity and some of his other stuff like that. It was really just kind of like a chip right off of that. It's got a lot of death metal to it. There's lots and lots of progressive elements. Like, it's enough to suit both parties, like your prog rock people and your death metal people. It's a really good happy medium between the two. Like, because this song here is the one that we're going to play in a few. It's the first song I heard, and it's a beautiful song. Like, I'm pretty sure you know, heck, if it weren't for the death metal growls in it, I'm sure even your wife could like it. Because it's got like a really beautiful, I mean, it's got a beautiful, like, you know, message in it. It's a guy just wanting to be dead for a day just to see what would it be like and, you know, what people think of him. Like, oh, that's kind of a neat idea. I never really thought of putting that into a song. But, yeah, it's a really nice one. Later in the album, like, besides this song, there's a lot of, like, just straight-up progressive passages. I'm like, as I heard in the Dream Theater podcast, which I guess Mark is happy he didn't do, because I assume he doesn't like Dream Theater very much. Yeah, I like prog metal, but I do get a little annoyed at prog, you know, that prog excess that we get from, you know, prog, because granted, that's the whole reason the genre exists, but after a while it does kind of wear. And some of these songs are a bit long, but it's still an amazing album. It just really blows you away to see how many things a band can really do in terms of vocals and guitar arrangements. It's very impressive. And just like, I mean, I recommend all the albums on this list. Pretty much from the one song I'm giving, I think it'll give you I think it gives a pretty good meter for, you know, what the album's going to be like. So that's all I really got to say on that.
All right, so here we go. This is Dead for a Day from the album The Inheritance by the band Witherscape.
Dark is the day where his thoughts betray, weighing on his mind, and it steals his soul. The places of trust with the memories love, waiting to align. Who will heal his soul? Wait and see for a grand return. He remains alone, drifting away. Twilight sky, novelty will fade away. Where should God be dead for a day? Just to hear what all the people will say. To find out in the end who's really my friend. What the meaning of life is about. Where should God be dead for a day? Just to hear what all the people will say. To find out in the end.
That's pretty good. I like that.
Well, there you go. Just throw some more stuff on the playlist. Why not? I mean, hey, you're never going to reach my over 80 albums I have to do before middle of December.
No, I'm still trying to get through some of the playlists that I made on Spotify, let alone the 80. I mean, I actually just listened to Soulfly on the way to work today, and there was nothing about it. I mean, it was, again, one of those Children of Bodom type albums where, yep, it's a Soulfly album. They sound like Soulfly.
Damn. The last year's Soulfly album was really, I didn't like it at all. Like, there were two songs, I was like, oh, this is pretty good, but the rest of it, I was like, man, that is underwhelming.
Yeah, the new album, Savages by Soulfly, it was like, I was looking for a track to try to play tonight, and before I came up with the idea of doing all covers, I was like, yeah, it sounds like a Soulfly album. It wasn't. I mean, if I heard it live, I'm sure I would like it a lot more. But it's kind of nothing really stood out to me. It all was just kind of Soulfly-y.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to listening to the new Sepultura though.
Now here's a band that I got to see over the summer, and we talked about it because I shared my live experience. And while they annoyed me in concert, I still enjoy the band. This one's going to annoy Rob because I've actually picked. This is a band that released 2 albums this year. The first one was in July 30th, 2013, was Five Finger Death Punches, The Wrong Side of Heaven, Side of Hell, Volume 1. The Wrong Side of Heaven and The Righteous Side of Hell, Volume 1. And I picked the song off that, and then I picked the song off Volume 2, which came out shortly after. So I'm listening to it, and I'm looking at the tracks, and suddenly I realized, hey, wait a minute, one of these looks really, really familiar. And I was flabbergasted, simply flabbergasted, when I heard it. Because not only do I like a good cover, but I like, I like a silly cover. I like a cover that just, why did this ever happen? And I like it when people just kind of just go balls out with their covers, and this one is probably the very definition of balls out. This is Mama Said Knock You Out by Five Finger Death Punch and Kenny. On my face right now.
I have that look on. I have that look. When you somebody takes a shit and you just can't figure out where it's coming from, and you just got that look because it's like you smell the shit and it's not going to go away and it just smells. I have the I smell poopy look on my face.
Why? What are you grumbling about? That was so much fun. I'm going to knock you out. Oh, Mama said knock you out. And he's yelling and carrying on. Great.
It's mixing the douchebaggery of Five Finger Death Punch with bad reflections and flashbacks of Limp Bizkit and the new metal craze.
I was going to say, it's combining the douchebaggery of Five Finger Death Punch with the douchebaggery of LL Cool J.
Oh, God. Man. If you want a fun cover, though, I was talking about the Melvins earlier, they covered Black Betty. And it's awesome because it's really fast.
I'll have to give it a listen one of these days. I don't know. I don't think you get much better than Ailstorms in the Navy.
Oh, I will have to hear that. Cause, their covers album was weird. They covered, Venom, and then they covered Queen, and they covered Black Betty, and then they covered some really, really obscure shit, and then they covered some punk, and they covered some pop. I was like, what is happening here? Oh, it is the weirdest cover album you'll probably hear all year. So, Everybody Loves Sausages by the Melvins.
Okay. I mean, why do you hate Five Finger Death Punch? What exactly is the issue here? Why can't you just have fun with it? Why, Robert Cooper? Why?
Well, one, they are just reek of douche, and I don't like douchebags very much.
It's just reek of douche.
I mean, it really is. It's just like the basketball jerseys with the "I'm a big tough man." It's just they're overcompensating. It's obvious. It's overcompensation for small testicles, I am sure. Even though it might make for better fatherhood, I don't know.
Yeah, but why can't you just enjoy the music? The angry.
I don't enjoy the music. I'm not I don't like hardcore very much. I am kind of angry a little deep down, but it's just, I don't know. I guess it's just not the right outlet for me. I don't really feel any connection to the music. I'd like kind of like with Hatebreed, like, you know, the new Hatebreed was okay. It was a lot better than I expected. But it just didn't really click with me. I'm like, oh, I just feel like it's kind of generic. Like after a few songs, you've heard it enough. I know I sound like everybody when they're like, yeah, this gets me to. I just kind of feel like it's really just kind of generic. The band does nothing to help their cause. Like, you know, there's some bands where you can like the members of the band, and you just don't like the music. Like, oh, well, you know, it's kind of like, it's like the opposite of how you are with Al Jorgensen in Ministry. You're like, I don't really like the guy who's like politics, but he's got some killer music. I'm like, oh, well, these guys are bros, and the music backs it up. I don't know, I just have, maybe it's just me, and I'm a weirdo, but I don't like bro. Like, I don't like bro.
I don't like bro either. And I am smiling. I think this is hilarious, but I don't like bro, obviously, and I don't like a lot of the culture that goes with it. But it's hard, you know, because I just went out and I ran tonight for the first time in months, and you know, I like to run to bro metal, I guess. You know, I like that like super aggressive bully music. And I tell you, like, I'm sitting there and I'm like running, and I'm just like, you know, no mercy is the way of the fist. You know, if I was in the cage, I'd have punched George St. Pierre right in the face. Yeah, you know, I mean, like, you know.
And he's still gonna win.
Oh, no, he's not. Because I'd have knocked him out. Well, just like Mama. Mama told me to knock him out or whatever.
Radlitz say knock you out.
That's right. Radlitz said knock you out. Oh, I'm gonna knock you out. Because I don't go 70, I go 100.
Yeah, I think maybe that is, like, there's the whole culture, like, I've been turned off on it since, elementary school, middle school, right about high school, yeah. I've just been really turned off by it. I guess I feel like the sort of people that are in that sort of scene, like, they kind of, maybe they invade my metal space. I'm like, because, you know, there's a lot of, like, I was reading some stuff about heavy metal. I plugged it last week in for my column. The one about how it talks about giving a psychological profile of metalheads, and it really talks about how we don't like change and stuff like that. Like, you know, or they're willing to accept musical differences, but like in terms of like change and stuff, they're not much for it. I just don't. I don't know. I feel like a lot of the bros, kind of like the reason I don't like a lot of like the not the hardcore kids, like the metalcore kids, the ones with the skinny jeans and the black veil brides. They just don't mix. Like, I feel like they just aren't really, like, they're really kind of self-absorbed and just kind of pompous and really up their own ass, and they're not there to really love the music and be with a lot of people and have fun. A lot of them are just have their head up their ass and are playing fucking head and ass like the WWE writers room.
So let's stop for a second. Let's go back to the early 90s, right? And metal for years had been the sound of the disenfranchised. It's you know, punk rock and metal where the non-cool kids went. It was, if you listen to that kind of stuff, you know, Al Gore wanted to throw you in Guantanamo Bay, which didn't exist at the time, and you know, Tipper Gore wanted to sticker you and sticker albums, and you know, and no one was allowed to listen to anything unless it was gospel, as you may recall. But you know, it really was. It was if you grew up in the 80s and you know, in the early 90s, metal was not particularly popular. In as far as it was a mainstream thing. Yes, Metallica and Ozzy Osbourne sold a lot of records and a lot of concert tickets, but you know, that was as far into the mainstream as it got. And if you were a high school kid, it was not the expectation that if you were cool, you listened to metal. And then something happened in the culture. You know, it came with the Seattle sound, but it went deeper. And more specifically, and I think I talked about this when we talked about the Pantera podcast, you know, Pantera was one of those bands that should have never been popular. You know, that should have been exclusively the domain of metal, but then metal became widely accepted and popularized among mainstream audiences. Now, we're not talking like, you know, Miley Cyrus mainstream here, but still more popular than they had any right to be. And I watched as all of my, haunts and things that were exclusive to my group of friends and our genre was now being taken over by masses and masses of people who had no business there. And I'm not 37. Yeah. I'm over it. You know what I mean? I've given up. I cannot own, you get to a point in life when you realize you just can't own things. It is the desire of the artist to make money and become popular, and in that sense, you have to sort of give up this belief that like you own that product in any kind of way, because you don't. The artist does, and so now I have to share Pantera and all of these other, and Soulfly and Sepultura and Korn and Marilyn Manson. I have to share it with everybody. Anybody that wants them, I got to share them with. So I just don't care anymore. and it goes. And so to go back to the argument about the bro rock, yes, I understand all the things that you were saying. I have long since stopped caring. And if it tickles my fancy, then I'm going to listen to it. And so what if it's if it's got an audience full of bros? I guess then I now share something in common with the bros because I like it too, and I can't fight the feeling anymore.
I mean, I guess I'm just different. I guess it's kind of like when there's things like I've been a fan of a show for a while, and then the fucking casuals show up. You're like, yeah. Oh yeah, I'm sure once I hit 37, yeah, it's casuals.
I was gonna say, Robert, wait till you become an old man like me, and you will soon realize, Radulich said there would come a day where I would just stop caring, and that time has come.
Yeah.
That was a lot.
Well, I have no doubt that I'm going to hit about 35, 36. I'm like, why am I bitching? Yeah.
Yep. All right. So tell me about Twat. Tell me about the Thud Ranger from Twat. What is this thing that you've got going on here?
I think it's in German, and it's like Fruitmonger, and the album is Tivas. They're actually, like, Argus is probably like one of the, Argus and Mackinac are two of like the bands I really discovered and came to really like through this year. This band here is the one that takes the cake for album that I love the most by a band I had never heard of. They really play like kind of like a Viking metal, kind of the older Bathory stuff. Like it's black metal, which surprises me because I like black metal, but I'm not one of these people that's like so good. There's some albums that are some of my favorites of all time that are black metal, but the genre as a whole tends to sort of kind of peak at a certain level. And like an album like this tends to go above that peak, but for the most part, a lot of it kind of has almost like a dam. Like all the black metal albums tend to hit a wall, and the really good ones tend to kind of like go over, kind of like Salmon. But yeah, a lot of it's just kind of, I don't want to say derivative. Like there's some really good stuff, but I guess with the sound and the image and the lyrical content, you can only go so far. At least I think so. But this album here just blew me away because it's got some really nice melodic moments, and it's just got a lot of really just heavy, angry, Viking-y black metal. It is really fucking good. I just love this album. This is one of my favorite albums. Just like kind of sit down, like this is the stuff I would run to. Yeah, I don't run very much. Like stuff like this and Amon Amarth, and like a lot of death metal is what I usually kind of like when I did running in back in community college, all 6 months ago. I always put on like Amon Amarth because it is fast and driving, and kind of gives you a nice little I'm a man sort of thing to it.
Yeah. All right. So this is Sudvanger from Twat by the band. The song Twat from the album Twat. Here we go.
Yeah, I noticed the middle of it. Blog Talk doesn't like bass. Yeah, because like the
again, I wasn't sure if that was the phone or what it was, but it was like when it started to just drop off like that, I'm like, all right, it's a good place to stop it.
No, it's the phone. The phone doesn't like bass because the vocals are like a very deep. Yeah, they're kind of deep, and as you know from, I'm sure you've listened to some black metal, a lot of the instrumentation and production is really just kind of almost like a very distant and cold sort of atmosphere to it. So, yeah, but like I said, I love the album, and it's something I've been recommending to a lot of my friends.
Okay.
Yeah.
So earlier this year, you and I, and we've talked about it a couple times now on this podcast, we reviewed the album Halo of Blood, which came out June 11th in 2013. So good. Came out this year. We reviewed
I make sure.
Yeah. We reviewed it on this very podcast, and it was just one of those nights where I was into it at first, and then like it just kind of was the same thing over and over and over again, and then I started trying to find a world's finest comic book where Batman was punching Superman. I got very distracted. So it's not one of our better goings. It's definitely a lesson for me of fucking pay attention to what I'm doing. So this is sort of an opportunity to revisit that. And look, it's a good album. I mean, if you look at the aggregate scores on Wikipedia for it, like Metacritic gave it a 66 out of 100. Most of the star ratings on it are like 4 out of 5 stars.
Yeah.
I think Revolver gave it like its lowest score of like 2.5 stars. But most of it's like 4 out of 5, 3 out of 4. It was a well received album, so it deserves better than what we gave it. So I want to kind of give it to you tonight by going back to it. There was a limited edition version of Halo of Blood that had 2 bonus tracks on it. The Children of Bodom, I wanted to ask you to play a different cover, and unfortunately it was on their best of, which came out last year, and I actually checked this time. So they did a cover of Shipping Up to Boston, which is fucking awesome, by the way. Unfortunately, it came out in 2012, so I was looking to see like if Children of Bodom had any other covers this year, and as it turns out there were 2. They covered Crazy Nights by Loudness and Sleeping in My Car by Roxette. And I kind of flipped the coin and went with Crazy Nights, so originally by Loudness. So this is from the album Halo of Blood, which was damn good. This is Crazy Nights. That was pretty good. I mean, Children of Bodom has actually an entire album full of covers. It's part of the reason why I think I keyed into them so much, because I love covers, as we've already talked about, and they've got a bunch. And most of their covers are absolutely outstanding. The Britney Spears one's hilarious.
Yeah, I love that, and I love the Party All the Time.
Yeah, Party Hard.
Yeah, that's one of my actually guiltiest pleasures of songs because I know it's not great, but it gets in my head all the time. Yeah, that one's fun. And and one cover that I think you'll like that I'm not sure if you heard, the new Arsis album has a cover of Corey Hart's Sunglasses at Night.
Oh, fantastic.
Yes, it is interesting to hear, like, death metal and Corey Hart.
Yeah, I always like, odd interpretations of music. So I definitely dig it. Okay, so Orphan Land is a band that I'm actually very much aware of. I've been into them in the past. Haven't heard much by them lately. How is the new album All Is One?
Well, it's different from their other outputs because I'm sure if you listen to their other 4 albums, I Am 3, that they really had a lot of like death metal and folk metal, and they kind of put that all together in one progressive package. Well, this new album really it's a lot more accessible. Like, for example, music editor Jeremy Thomas fell in love with this album. That's it, yeah. I was like, Jeremy, listen to this. And he listened to the title track, and he goes, okay, I love this. And then it made it into his top 8 albums of the half year for this year, so I was pretty proud. Yeah, this new album, instead of going with like the death and the folk, like the death metal and the prog metal with some folk in it, this has really stripped a lot of the prog away and added more of the symphonic feel. And it's almost just like a straight folk metal album, with one exception. I think the song is called Fail. It's might be. Yeah, it's on the album. There's only one song that has death metal vocals, and it's one of the best on the album. Who'd have thought? But a lot of it's just a lot of what if you love work, a lot of the a lot of the Middle Eastern instruments playing along, and except this album, instead of doing stories, I think they might have taken their stance as ambassadors between religions and nations a little too seriously. There's a lot of songs about like peace in the Middle East, and like this song's called All Is One, and it's about how all the religions are very similar and how there shouldn't be fighting between them, which glorious message. Love that. I'm just like, yeah, they're being really, really serious about this, which, I mean, yeah, they're Israelis, so they're going to kind of sort of be in it, but yeah, they're a really good unifying force for the Middle East in terms of music, because, the Middle East can't exactly agree on much. They're like Congress.
Ladies and gentlemen, your understatement of the year.
The Middle East can't agree on much.
All right. All right, so let's give it a listen here. Now, Orphan Land, they're the Israeli progressive metal band, correct?
Yes.
Okay. So, from Israel, this is Orphan Land doing All Is One from the album All Is One.
We are more the sons of the blade.
they really made use of like a traditional Jewish sound, and which I've never really heard them do before. I mean, you're more of an expert on the band than I am, but I don't recall them having such an authentically Jewish sound mixed with metal. That's probably the most interesting thing I've heard in a very long time.
Oh, let's see. Their last album has a song that's just actually their past two. Mabul had Nora. That had a very very Jewish sound to it. On the last album, Sapati and I can't remember, like track 6 has a very very deep Middle Eastern folk sound to it. Yeah, they've really been slowly edging more and more towards the sound they're at now. Because I have every album except for this one and the first one, and like the second album is a lot of death metal, and there's still some good progressive and folk elements, but it's a lot of death metal. It's more the predominant. And then you got Mabul, which is one of the greatest albums of all time, in my opinion. Really was the perfect harmony, and then Never Ending Way of Lord Warrior is kind of like they started going more towards progressive and folk and less towards death metal, and this one's just like, oh, symphonic folk metal, why not?
I think I'm actually pretty familiar with Mabul. I remember listening to that when that came out. I mean, I couldn't tell you what it sounds like now, but I remember when Mabul came out, because one of my buddies hit me to it. It was before I left for Florida, so I was still in New York at the time. I'm sure that was one that Chuck Ninesling hit me to and said, hey, you like this? This is Israeli progressive metal. And I'm like, oh, okay, cool. And I remember thinking it sounded interesting even back then. But I really liked that song. I actually just added it all as one to my Spotify playlists.
Oh, yeah, it is really good. Like I said, Jeremy Thomas listened to it, and he was just floored. Yeah, it's a really good album. I really love it. Like some of the purists for the band are like kind of annoyed that the album isn't as deep and progressive as their other ones. But this is still a really good fun listen, and like it's really accessible to people without alienating the fans that they already have. It's a great album.
I honestly feel like so much of the music that's out there is just sound alike and repeat of stuff we've heard a billion times before. It just feels like that was so different than anything else I've heard. That's the kind of, this is what I'm talking about. Like, I don't want to get into albums like the new Soulfly because it just sounds like everything I've already heard. Whereas that, I actually want to take some time and listen to, because that doesn't sound like anything else I've really ever listened to before.
Yeah, they're really unique. Because Jeremy came back to me, he's like, hey man, he's like, he makes like RPG characters, and he puts like a soundtrack to them and then plays around with them, whatever. But he's like, oh, actually this time I actually created a playlist before I created the character because I figured you'd be able to find me stuff. And I'm like, okay, well I gave him Orphan Land, and then the guitarist of Orphan Land has his own like solo side project that has a lot of these similar sounds. And then I sent him some. They covered this guy named Erkin Koray, who's a '70s Turkish musician, and they have a very similar sound. He has a very similar sound to them, but for the most part, you don't really find many bands like this, which I guess is unlike with the Swedish and the Finnish folk metal, where metal's kind of big there in comparison to the Middle East. You don't see many Middle Eastern folk metal bands because the Middle East, metal is a sin there. Like, straight up, it is banned in most countries. So to see a band really utilize the sound of the area is just really impressive. And like I said, believe it or not, we almost reviewed this out because I remember you were not very enthusiastic about Amon and Mars until you saw them. So I was like, oh, we'll just do Orphan Land. And you're like, let's do Amon and Mars. I'm like, you guys. Didn't matter to me either way. They're both good.
So I have breaking news.
Uh-huh.
How close are you to Charlotte?
How close am I to Charlotte? 2 hours.
How close am I to Charlotte, living in Florida? You're the one in North Carolina.
Uh-huh.
Okay, at the Fillmore, December 5th, Thursday, Megadeth, Fear Factory. Oh, you already knew about this.
And Nonpoint. Yeah, Megadeth, Fear Factory, and Nonpoint. I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to go because I haven't asked my parents yet, but because I know what I'm getting for my birthday. I'm getting clothes. Yeah. And then she's like, yeah, I'm getting you clothes for Christmas, too. I'm like, sweet Christ, I needed like 3 pairs of pants. They're coming to the Fillmore. I already know about it. I was kind of excited for like Megadeth, and Fear Factory's okay. On point, I could take them or leave them. But, if I did get to go, I really would like to, because, it's a pretty solid card. Not off. Well, okay, Megadeth comes here like twice a year, but still. I do want to.
Yeah.
I would like to see them. Yeah,
I was excited
Fillmore gets really. What?
I was excited for you, and now I don't know how I feel.
Well, no, I would be much more excited if I was just finding out about it, but I've known about it for months, and I was like, I don't think I'm going to be able to go. Because that's actually, I found out my exam week. For some reason, my fucking college decided to make it the exam week 2 weeks. So, yeah, that's, I don't know, I'll have to see. Like, the Fillmore's been getting some crazy shit. They got Orange Goblin, they got Nile, they got Deicide. They're getting some really good stuff. They're the ones
but clearly there's no place to play in New York City anymore. You got to find other places to play.
Yeah. Hell, New York still is. Out of everywhere, like New York, L.A., Florida, like Chicago, they get all the stuff. Oh, and Texas. For some reason, Texas. I guess because those are your big markets, your hotbeds, the places where there will be people seeing you. Because, coming to Charlotte, it's a bit iffy. Because Charlotte's metal scene, I'm not huge into it because I don't live down there. That's an hour and a half away. Like, they're emerging as a metal scene, but like where I live over here in Winston, there's nothing. There's shit. The reason I couldn't be in a band in high school is because everybody around me was a dumbass.
You need to put your stuff in a handkerchief and tie it to a stick, and you need to get yourself to Charlotte and be a part of the metal scene, Robert Cooper. I think you're right.
It depends on if and when I get my teaching degree, we'll see. Because I know Pete. Yeah, I know you're still telling me don't do the teaching. Oh, I'm too deep. I gotta finish.
I don't know. My wife has a master's degree and she's looking for a way out. The lesson here is it's never too late. However, we're gonna go ahead and move on to my next track. This is from the Wrong Side of Heaven, the Righteous Side of Hell, Volume 2, which came out on November 19th, 2013. That was today. Hey, this is timely. All right, good stuff. Not only do I pick an album from last year, but I picked an album that came out today. All right, can you call it the Standist?
No. I just went on Jeff Harris on your ass.
No. If you were going Jeff Harris on me, you would go into a 20-minute dissertation over why I'm a terrible human being. But Dana White is right, and how Joe Rogan's a fairly good commentator, and I'd like to see him from the UFC for the rest of my life. Not sure. Till the end of time. Till the end of time is what he said.
Yeah, I remember it. Till the university. I'm not sure if he was trolling. I really wish he was trolling.
I don't want to talk about it. I do, however, want to play an old traditional folk song called House of the Rising Sun is covered by Five Finger Death Punch.
There is a house in sin.
is that not badass to you? It's just so great. First of all, he sounds like Pete Steele from Typo Negative. There is a house where I
like bacon. That was okay.
Where?
Hey, you got an okay out of me. That's better than nothing.
I think you're warming up. You're warming up to it. We're making progress.
I'm warming up to them when they're not sounding like themselves.
Right. In the interest of time, before my voice completely gives out, you know how old Carcass is? Carcass has been around for so long that I covered one of their songs with my band in high school. Did you know that, Robert?
Yeah. Yes, I do. They are old as dirt, and yeah, like believe it or not, I didn't used to like Carcass because grind isn't exactly my thing, and that was the first stuff I heard of them was grind. So I was like, so I never got around to them, and then Carcass, this new album came. So yeah, I'm surprised you haven't heard it yet.
Yeah, the album that my friends and I were really big into. This is back in 1993. Heartwork. And that was the album where they went from like kind of like the grind. That was one of their transitions between grind to kind of like that melodic death metal sound that became so famous. Yeah, I remember that one. It was because I wasn't that familiar with Carcass back then. But the drummer in my band really liked them, and they were like, "Oh, we should do this song." And I want to say we actually might have done Heartwork from them. Yeah, I have to.
It's a really good song.
Yeah, it is. You know what? And I remember I stuck with them for the next album too, in 1996's Swan Song, which was also pretty good. I remember that much of it. So, all right, so. Yeah, I remember Rock the Vote was actually really, really good, as I recall. Keep on Rotting in the Free World. That was the one that stood out for me. God.
Oh, I love that song.
Oh, the memories. All right, so tell me, why are we still talking about Carcass these days? What's so great about them?
Well, this is their comeback album, pretty much the first one they've released in Swan Song. And like I said, I was kind of a Carcass noob. Like, yeah, I knew some songs from Swan Song and Heartwork, but they're kind of their classic stuff I didn't really know so well because I just wasn't really familiar with it. Like, yeah, Heartwork and Swan Song are still classic, but I'm talking like, late 80s, that sort of stuff. So, yeah, I heard this album was coming out, and there's a lot of hype behind it, and I was like, oh, okay, let me download the song, because they had a free track download of Captive Bolt Pistol, which I almost chose for this album, but no, it was just, I listened to it and I was blown away. It was heavy, it was fast, it was straight up like fucking sword hammer. Yeah, the hammer and sword all in one. It's like just hitting you in the face. And the lyrics were pretty much, classic Carcass. You've got a lot of medical terms and a lot of descriptions of people being dissected, stuff like that, kind of the gorier sort of things. But I have listened to this album, no joke, at least 15 to 20 times because because I went and me and my stepdad went to Best Buy the week after this came out. I was like, hey, you mind if I pick this album up? He's like, yeah, sure, why not? So I listened to Surgical Steel for like three weeks straight, just over and over, because there's not a bad song at all. Each song is great, and it's very similar to Children of Bodom, where all the songs are great, but unlike with Children of Bodom, one, there's some change in the songs, and two, I can just keep going on about a lot of the songs over and over, like the intro 1984, I think that's on it. Well, the intro, it's very good. It's a lot different from a lot of the album because it's an instrumental that's all guitar driven for the most part. And then you've got stuff like a Thrasher's Abattoir, which is punk speed. It is that damn fast. It is just straight up punk speed. And like I said, this is a really good comeback for Carcass. It has gotten a lot of fans. It actually reached around the 40s on the Billboard charts. Like, yeah, a band that hadn't released a new album in nearly 17 years got to number 40. A death metal band, nonetheless. So yeah, it is.
Wow.
It's just an astounding. Yeah, it's an astounding album, and it's really good to see that people are really excited about this. And actually, I was reading today that a possible tour for them is Gorguts, some local band, and then Black Dahlia Murder might be going on tour next year.
That sounds pretty cool.
Yeah, the local band, or the smaller band, I'm like, I never heard of them, but like if we get Gorguts and Carcass and Black Dahlia Murder, I am going to have to kill somebody to get over there to get to see them, because that is, like I said, Carcass is amazing. It really did kind of show, because a lot of people, you know, they did come in when Carcass for Heartwork, where Michael Amott of, you know, Arch Enemy fame was there. But believe it or not, I think their first 2 or 3 albums didn't have him. It just had I think it was Bill Steer. Yeah, I think it was Bill Steer's their guitarist for most of for those albums, and he just does a great job. And I mean, just look at this album here; it is just insane. He's the only guitarist on this album, yet it just feels like there's so many people here. I think it really proves that the guy is so underrated, because a lot of people just paid, you know, a lot of attention to Amott, which is, of course, warranted, because the guy's a great guitarist. But I really feel like he got kind of a bit of a shaft when it came to the band, because they got really popular in a time where the main guitarist was seen as second fiddle to a guy that they brought in for a few albums ago. Yeah, it's Bill Steer. Okay, I had to make sure. Oh, and Bill Steer, I forgot, he does live shows with Angel Witch. So if anybody likes some new wave of British heavy metal, there you go. But,
all right.
Yeah, this great album. Like I said, I'm sure once you hear it, you will be like, oh, another album. So, yeah, we'll find out.
All right, so here we go. This is Thrasher's Abattoir from the album Surgical Steel by the band Carcass. Played the whole thing there because I was not paying attention.
Well,
so
I
cool.
actually chose it. I chose it because we couldn't just play the whole song. It's not even 2 minutes. Well, that is an awesome song in my opinion. Yeah.
Very, very good. Very, very good. Yeah, I'll check out the new Carcass. Okay. So, in my ongoing quest to never get the albums from the actual year we're supposed to be doing a retrospective in, actually, I can't give myself too much crap on this, because this last song here we're going to do for the night, I said best and worst of, and I honestly don't know how I feel about this. I'm very, very mixed. I started off with a ministry side project, Buck Satan and 66 Shooters, so I thought it would only be fitting to end the night with a ministry cover. And lo and behold, on November 1st, to promote the forthcoming album that'll from January 2014, Stampede of the Disco Elephants. Limp Bizkit. You all know Limp Bizkit. Limp Bizkit's putting out a new album on the Cash Money label, and they released a single back in April called Ready to Go, and they have released now a studio version of a song that they played at Woodstock back in 1999. Very, very first song that I ever heard by Ministry. The song is called, Rob, just hang on to your pants. This is...
I'm not wearing any.
Go in the name of the Lord!
How are you feeling?
I actually couldn't hear most of it. It was really kind of staticky, but I guess this does not help me understand your love of Ministry. Because it's fucking Fred Durst, the only guy to ever get a guest spot in a WWE video game that didn't wrestle.
All right, so I don't even want to address this. Somebody asked me why would I bother sharing this. My answer was to troll you. That's why.
Well, you succeeded. I think we should look back on the podcast we had planned out that we never did. Let's see. There's the Mecca podcast. There's the Killswitch Gage podcast. There's the Spiritual Beggars podcast. The Orphan Land podcast. The good thing is we actually got things done this year, right?
Yeah, no, I think we've had a very good year. I mean, we pretty much stayed consistently on schedule. We didn't have to cancel too many shows. We
didn't miss a whole month.
Well, I took time off. These were planned times. It wasn't like,
no, we missed March. Remember? Because you remember, I think one of them, Lily was sick, and then the other one, you were, sick or something. Yeah, because we missed, 2 shows. That's when Clutch, you remember, I think it was Clutch was a month apart.
Yeah, maybe. But for the most part, despite that, I think we've had a very good year. It's been an enjoyable year doing these with you. I look forward to doing them for at least the beginning of the year. We're gonna have to start planning like what albums we want to review come January. We are set to start again on January 14th, so you gotta get your thinking cap on.
Well, I mean, that's the tough thing. Like when I told Sean Comer when I was, like I said, I'm just pretty much, it's going to be Metal Coop and his amazing friends once you leave. That's what this podcast is going to turn into. Like I told Sean, I'm like, the only thing that's different, like, in the longer run, you guys have everything planned out until your break. With us, we can't quite do that because metal releases are really, they're kind of spur of the moment sometimes. Like, sometimes we don't find out about shit until like the week of. So I think once we hit January 1st, like around that time, we should have an idea of what to do. I'm sure we'll find something because I'm sure if you remember last year, January was actually January and February were awful for metal. You remember because we did Hatebreed and then we couldn't find anything, so we did Pantera.
Okay, so here's right now what's on the Wikipedia page for albums expected to be released in January. Right. January 6th is the new Iced Earth, Plagues of Babylon. So, I mean, right then and there, I'm good with that one. So let's be ready to do. So let's be ready by January 14th to do the new Iced Earth. Okay.
Yeah, that'll work with me. Luckily, hopefully that'll be the U.S. release date. That's the other problem with metal. But they're U.S. bands.
Actually, that's actually not going to work for the 14th. Because I just clicked on the album, and it was, I thought it was January 6th, but they're saying January 21st now.
Shit. Okay, let's see, 2014 in heavy metal. Okay, 2014 in heavy metal music. What do we have? Oh, Wikipedia, guide me. Yeah, let's see. Skullfist, Suicidal Angel. Damn. Like I said, that's the problem.
All right, we'll figure this out.
Yeah, like I said, once we get closer to the date, we'll definitely find out a lot of stuff, especially if we get a lot of stuff pushed back. And if push comes to shove, maybe we can cover like a December album or something, Or maybe. We'll just have to see. Yeah, I'm looking forward to the new Iced Earth. Did you listen to the last one? Dystopia?
Yeah.
Yeah. Because I love Stu Block. Like, he turned me on to Into Eternity, which is, like, amazing. So, yeah.
I'm actually looking at the December releases now for, hang on. I'm looking at the December releases now for 2013.
Yeah, I guess we can have one of those as a backup or something.
Wow, there's a new Propane album coming out.
Hank Hill knows.
Oh, you know what Sean Comer wants us to do? Or I said, you guys can leave this for when I'm actually not going to be on the show. He wants us to do an entire show dedicated to Nightwish.
Okay. Like, that's going to be fun because the tables will be turned because I know very little about Nightwish. I'll talk to him about it because I still haven't engaged the rest of the 411 crew. I don't think I'm even going to bother Pat because Pat is busy. But everybody else, I'll try. Because it's like, what happened to your comic podcast, Pat? Busy. What happened to your column? I got judging.
Yeah, I almost feel bad if I said anything. All right, so this has been a lovely, lovely year of metal releases, even when they were terrible. Robert Cooper, you have been an absolute delight, and I look forward to working with you again next year.
Dude, I don't know what I'm going to do with another month Mark Radulich in my life.
You'll have to make yourself available for other podcasts. But all right, so this is it. We're going to get out of here. We're going to play some. I actually did find the Storm track, and we're going to go out to that tonight. So the last thing you're going to hear is a pirate on the Metal Hammer of Doom. Is a pirate metal band covering the Village People. Be well, be safe, and behave.
Oh God.
And, have a happy Thanksgiving, a Merry Christmas, and of course a Happy New Year.
Come to on the land or on the sea.